Okay, welcome to the NoCS Degree Show. This is a show where I talk to developers that are self-taught or have been to coding bit camps, and I find out how they've become successful. I'm joined today by my good friend Rick, who's a front-end developer from Australia. He's working now for Westfields Group, which is like a massive retail company in Australia. And yeah, Rick's going to be talking today about how he got into coding, his experience at Bootcamp, the transition from junior to senior developer, and lots more. So yeah, welcome to the show, Rick.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries, man. So yeah, Rick is actually a good friend of mine who I know from Canberra, and we used to do lots of DJing together back in the day. I don't think we ever thought we'd be on a podcast talking about coding. But,
No, yes. It's definitely a change from when you were, wearing a kilt behind the decks.
Yeah, I think I did that once. It wasn't like a uniform or anything.
It's just that's my image of you now.
Yeah, cool. That's good. That's a good image. So yeah, used to be that I knew you from DJing, but that was like many moons ago now. How did you get into coding in the first place?
That's a good question. I think that after where were we? We were in Canberra. I was studying business. I was sort of doing I was interested a lot in startups and small businesses and technical things and stuff like that. Definitely sort of like more of your basic sort of web stuff. But then what really clicked for me was right after uni, I got a job, which was a terrible job. And it was like, for basically no money. And it was like answering phones and answering emails and then like just sending jobs out to certain people. So it was like a communications job.
Okay.
And it was so terrible that like when I was there over the Christmas break and there was no one there, I was just like, no one was calling or anything like that. I was just like, I'm just going to figure out how to automate this because a lot of these emails are coming in, they're all coming from a form. So they're all exactly the same email.
Yeah.
So I sort of like got into the Python scripts.
Nice.
figured out some package which you could read a Gmail account and then read that and then put that into an Excel sheet. And then I used a little automation thing to like, not like, I didn't even use like an API or anything like that, even though there was an API. I just got like got the cursor to move around the screen, click the right spot on the box when it was like at full screen.
Nice.
And then that kind of changed from something that took me 3 hours each day to do it in like 6 minutes or something.
Awesome.
So after that, I was hooked. I was like, okay.
That's awesome. Were you still like clocking in for like 3 or 4 hours? Just being like, it's been a really long day doing all these emails.
I was, and it was like, I got bored of that. So I started doing something. Well, to be honest, I was just kind of teaching myself code at that point.
Nice.
Because I was like, I've got the spare time.
Yeah.
I tried telling my boss just didn't want to hear it. I was like, I've done this thing and I don't really need to do much work now. And he didn't want to have a meeting or anything. He was like, we're doing it like 2 weeks or something.
I've made this thing that saves you like hours of time per employee. It's like, nah, we don't want to hear about that. So, but yeah, you did a degree in like, was it like business studies?
I did. I actually did like it was a business degree and a minor in psychology. So.
Oh, cool. So yeah, just to clarify that you weren't doing like CS or anything at uni. So.
No, I didn't. I didn't do. Yeah, I didn't really expect myself to get into programming at all. Like that was not the part I was meant. I thought, I could work for like an ad agency and like I did my internship at an ad agency in Bangkok actually, which was cool.
Bangkok.
Like, that's what I was going for after uni. I was like, I want to do that. That's so great.
Yeah.
And I just, didn't work out.
Yeah. Fair play.
But maybe I'm quite happy that it didn't.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are. So once you'd kind of like automated away your own job, so to speak, and you discovered that like Python was really cool and that you really liked coding. What was your like next step from there?
After that, I started getting more involved with the innovation network. I had a friend who was pretty heavily involved with it. So there was an incubator in Canberra that I ended up working for, sort of indirectly, and slightly directly. But yeah, so I started doing some work from them, and that sort of concreted more in my mind that I should double down on the programming. And that was because like I went in sort of, we were trying to like we would do some like digital products for them, like do some like email headers or something like that, or some of those things. And then we would figure out, talk to some of like the startups and sort of figure out where they would want to go. And then we also were running like a program which sort of drew people into the network. And then, so from that, we're sort of talking to a lot of people who are doing startups and doing these ideas, which was really cool. But like the number one thing that everyone needed was just they needed developers. There weren't enough. So, at that time when I was doing my little Python scripts and doing some FPG things and a bit of HTML here and there, that's when I was like, maybe I should really focus in on that. And that's when I decided to do the boot camp.
Nice one. Yeah, I think like we'll get onto that in a second, but yeah, I have noticed because I run lots of like job board newsletters and stuff like that, and one of them is kind of for fully remote positions, and it's like remotecompanies.co, and if you want to check that out. And whenever I look at companies, they've always got we're hiring 20 developers and 2 marketers and I don't know, 2 accountants or 2 sales team. And there's the vast majority of jobs in tech are developers. So it's I think it's a further reason to learn to code, because that's just where the jobs are more than any other aspect of more than any other division of companies. People are really wanting developers.
Well, that's what it's probably a pretty popular saying, pretty popular thing that people say anyway, that 10 years ago you had all these different companies. They might be banks or, whatever it is. But now, these days in 2021, every company is a tech company, because their digital offering is such a major part of what they do now, that every company is a tech company.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but banks have terrible websites. I think when I was in Australia, I did actually really like the kind of design of Combank, Commonwealth Bank.
Combank is the leader for the digital banking, I suppose.
Yeah,
they're actually quite good. I'm with Combank.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. But banks here, when I use my UK bank and I try and click a button, the whole website size is okay, I guess we have to reload now. It's just wow, it's crazy. These companies make so much money and they just don't put any resources into making their websites work.
I did a year at a bank last 2 years ago. Or last year, I don't know. I've lost track of time these days.
That sounds like a punishment, it's a sentence.
Yeah. No, it wasn't too bad actually. It was okay. But oh my God, there's so many layers of complexity to just to get one thing moved from here to there. It's just this. You have to go talk to their team communicator to talk to their communicator. They're in different buildings, so it just feels like an offshore team. It's just
oh God.
It's they're massive. There's just thousands, tens of thousands of people who work for them, and yeah. And then the technology wise, there's so many layers upon layers of different subsystems and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're big.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's a lot of work. So yeah, what how's your experience at the coding boot camp you went to?
Oh yeah, that was really good. It was really good. So I kind of moved to Sydney from Canberra to do that, which was great because that meant that that's all I was doing. So it really let me, like, it's 40 hours a week, for about, for just under 6 months, including like an internship. And then I would be doing stuff on weekends. So it'd be, 50 plus hours a week of just dedicating myself to doing web development, which was awesome, really. Like, I mean, if you clock that many hours in that amount of time, it's just like that hot housing effect that you get, which is a very efficient way to learn, in my opinion.
So do you really think like going all in and doing like 40 hours a
Yeah,
week is more effective than like say an hour each evening or something, you know?
yeah, I think it is actually. There's kind of two things. I mean, I guess you could say three, but there's two main things that was great about that. And the first one was that hot housing thing where it's just, you live and sleep code. And I think that some of the people who were also like working part-time or full-time, and trying to do the course, and then some people were studying like another course, they ultimately didn't go as well as those of us who were really just doing this, just doing the boot camp.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to say about that. And then the second thing is that you're surrounded by like 30 other people who are doing the same thing. So, that's kind of awesome because it's like you for one have a network of people who you can go to and work things out together, and ask questions and whatnot. But then also you end up with a little cohort that you have at the start of your new career as well. So, I mean, I still see people from my cohort quite regularly. Actually, I went to one of their weddings the other day. And
Wow.
I was working alongside like one of my friends who I met there. We worked at Deloitte together for a year. So.
Nice.
So and then people are always sort of saying, "Hey, I've got this new job is going here," or these people are hiring and stuff like that. So, so I think that's really important, especially when you're entering a new career. You have a network already. That networks can take a long time to build up, and computer programs aren't always the most social type, so it can take even longer.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, you make a really good point. I think like that. Yeah, two of the best things about like boot camps do seem to be that kind of like joining a network already, and also just the kind of hot housing effect of like learning something really intensely, like 40 hours a week or something. You're probably going to like absorb it quicker than if it's just like, I don't know, an hour each evening you do after your day job or something.
Yeah.
Nice one. So yeah, what was your experience of like getting your first job as a developer like?
Yeah, I mean that one was okay. I sort of did an internship and they hired me, so I worked for them for a little while, which was okay. And then I ended up working for a startup, which was pretty cool. I enjoyed that a lot, and that was through a friend of mine, actually, through our friend Vinny.
Oh, nice one.
Who was looking for. So that was quite good. And then, but I sort of been doing some of that smaller stuff, this smaller scale things And so then after that, I ended up getting a job at Deloitte Digital, which were doing very large things. And that was really a great step for me, because it was giving me exposure to something writing programs that's going to scale that for millions of people rather than, maybe tens of thousands.
Yeah, nice one. So yeah, I guess people listening or watching in America might not be familiar, but like Deloitte is like a huge company. They're like the kind of big.
They're in America.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm just like sorry, Americans. But yeah, they're like a huge company. So it's like I guess I think
they employ like 400,000 people.
All right, we get it, Rick. I was wrong. But it's they employ like 3% of the world's population. But yeah, it's a big deal to work for them. So like, what was the interview process like for them?
I should say as well that I didn't actually know who they were before I started working for them.
Thank goodness.
I had this amazing thing when I was looking for a new job, and I sort of got them a bit confused. So I remember I was at the pub and I was talking to my friend Terry, and he's like, "Oh, so what places are you going for?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's this thing, and then there's like a fintech startup called Deloitte, and then there's this other one." And he's like, "What?" It's not a startup, man. You should probably look into that one.
Yeah.
I got there, it's got like views of the Opera House.
Yeah, exactly.
Harbour Bridge is in like its massive building.
Oh my god! Wow, they're doing very well for a startup. Yeah, I think I've got a similar story.
I haven't told many people that.
I've got a lot. You're just telling like a whole YouTube and podcast channel now. So yeah, I guess one of my favorite like career stories around that was like someone I just saw this on Twitter one time, but someone had gone for a job with like eBay, and they were like I think as a developer, and they're like in the like elevator, and when you're like on the elevator up, you're doing the kind of like small talk with like people that are showing you around and stuff, and this person was like, "Oh, so have you used like eBay much already yourself? Just for like selling your own stuff?" And the person's like, "Oh no, I wouldn't trust selling stuff online and like all the scammers and stuff. You're just gonna get scammed, aren't you?" It's just like, yeah, welcome to eBay. It's like, it's a great first impression to make.
Perfect.
Anyway, yeah. So you're doing like doing consulting at Deloitte, which is I guess quite different from what a lot of developers do. So can you tell us like what was consulting like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as far as getting the interview into there, it was actually quite interesting, because like that sort of startup experience that I had, they were really keen on, because they were like, "Oh, that's really interesting. We usually just get like people from like big banks or corporates and stuff."
Nice.
So they were like, and that was the first time that happened. I was like, "What? You actually want all the like the little little stuff?" And they're like, "Yeah."
The edgy startup person like pays off.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. But once you got in there, they did sort of have a bit of a startup vibe, but then it was like sort of housed within like the whole Deloitte ecosystem, which was really big. So they have a full service agency, which is good, and then they can obviously pull from like much larger clients than a smaller agency or something like that, because they have that infrastructure to be respected enough to take on that sort of thing. So yeah, it was so consulting, interesting place.
Yeah. Can you run us through like Because like we'll get onto it in a bit, but now you're in a kind of like, I guess, traditional like product kind of environment where, you're working on like a company's own like code and stuff. But can you
I've moved again.
run us through like a typical situation? Was it kind of like, I know we're Coca-Cola, we're launching a new website, can you make it for us? Was it that kind of stuff or not really?
I was lucky enough to work on a lot of greenfield projects. So a lot of it was sort of, hey, get us started on this and then we'll take it over.
Okay.
Or it might be, hey, we just build this little section of it. We're growing really fast. And we've got like, when I was working for one of the big banks, that was the situation there. They were like, we're scaling up this. We don't have enough resources for it, so we're just going to get all these consultants in to build little parts of it. But then sometimes you were jumping on like a legacy project and just figuring out a bug for a week or so, which was really interesting. And I think that one of the good things about consulting is that you are sort of jumping around different projects. So whether you're starting new projects, if you're lucky, but if you're just jumping to different projects, you still get to see a lot of different code bases at different stages in their life, which is like really interesting.
Yeah,
and you get and it's a lot more client facing as well. So you get to talk a bit more to the clients.
Nice one,
especially on smaller projects.
Cool. And I guess there's quite a lot of like novelty there, where you're like going into different projects and seeing different code bases, like you say, so it's not just like the same thing over and over.
It can be quite fun. I remember I had to jump on one project and it was in Vue, and the whole thing was about 3 weeks. They were getting to the end of financial year. They wanted to add a new feature in 3 weeks to spend some of their budget. So they got us in, and I'd never done Vue before ever. So I had like 3 weeks to like learn a whole new framework, figure out like kind of a bit of spaghetti code, which the previous developers had left. So they were like no help to have like a proper handover or anything. And you had to figure it all out and then implement a whole new like a new feature set in 3 weeks. And it's like, oh my God.
Good job. But
so it was kind of fun though.
I seem to remember though that you were doing like, so you live in Sydney, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of like, they would like put you up in hotels in like Melbourne and stuff like that. And
so because it's sort of like a national company, they sort of just will move resources around where they need them. So I was jumping on a whole bunch of Melbourne stuff. Actually, that one I just mentioned was in Melbourne. And so, they would fly you down and you'd stay in at like a 5-star hotel and you'd, get flown down and get all those status points. And then I got like a full-time, like a 9 months project. It would have been a 12-month project if COVID didn't hit, but it was a 9-month project. In Melbourne. So I was basically just flying down there and just living in the Hyatt, which is amazing. It's such a perk. Like, it's a huge perk.
That sounds pretty amazing.
Really nice.
Seeing as you were getting put up in 5-star hotels, why did you leave that company?
That's a good question. I think that I'd sort of I'd been in the consulting game for a bit at this point, and what I hadn't done is sort of been on a permanent project team. So not just jumping in from one project to the next, but actually being in like a very large project and sticking with that and figuring out how that large product side of things works. So that's something that I knew that I was sort of missing a bit. So that sort of was one of the intrinsic reasons why I left to do that.
Was there an extrinsic reason? in the form of
There's
like,
always some extra
in
degree.
the form of a big bag of money, perhaps.
Yeah, well, there's always some of that. So I'm contracting at my current role, and the contracting rates are a lot better than other rates.
Nice.
Than like working for a company.
Yeah.
And with consultancy as well, it's sort of you are the product. You see, so it's like if you if you get billed out for $1,200 or $2,000 or whatever it might be, then they have to sort of make money off you and then pay you like less and stuff. But if you're a product company, that product that you're working on might be be worth $100 million a year or $10 million a year, or whatever it is. So that your time is not directly related to your billable price, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, there's a bit of that, but yeah, I think So contracting rates are generally quite good, but you don't get any like career progression stuff. You don't get like mentorship and sick leave and such as that.
Yeah.
But so my plan at the moment is to do this for a year and then make a decision after that.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah, I guess there's kind of like, I think that's pretty similar the world over. It's like if you're a full-time employee, you get like pension or like supers, you call it in Oz, and get all these kind of like in-work benefits, but you have a lower salary.
No one lets you live at a hotel, so...
Yeah, exactly. And if you're like a contractor, you get paid lots more, but you like lose out on things like pension or 401k in the States, or like lots of other benefits, and you have like less security. So like I know lots of people that are just on like really well paid like 6-month contracts and stuff. But obviously for some people, they don't want the kind of like, they prefer just a stable, I'm always going to get paid the salary. But yeah, it depends what your interests are, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're sort of, climbing that career ladder as well, and you want to get somewhere in your late stage career, if you do consulting, potentially sacrificing some of the opportunities for a late stage career.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm pretty not too worried about that at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I was kind of wondering if we could talk about how you've kind of felt going from being like a junior developer, because I guess going from a junior developer to a senior developer, because I guess so many people are learning to code and they want to get in there, and they get in there and they've got the junior developer position, but then after a few years they're kind of like, oh, I have to like, it's like a different job, I have to be a senior now. So how did you kind of manage that kind of change?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it kind of depends a little bit on what you define as a senior developer. I mean, there's kind of two different types, I think. There's those who like are technically very well versed and will know like the code and the language and the tools like in and out, and they know how they operate at scale, and they can deliver like all sorts of things. And then there's other senior developers who are more like maybe better at like code reviews or teaching other people, or like mentoring, and then communicating to like the rest of the team, or the different parts of the team as well. So that can still sort of be a senior developer, I believe. There might be two different trajectories after that, perhaps. Perhaps one of them is more of a specialist route, and another one is more of a generalist route. But I think that ultimately those two things are still very important, and I still see senior members of my team maybe lean in one way or the other. So having said that, like, you know, there's a certain expectation as a senior that you aren't going to need a lot of, you're not going to need like mentorship or something like that to get the job done, and that you're probably going to have come across. You may have come across the problem before, but you will, you know, you can figure out the solution.
Yeah. Are you
or whatnot? So
have you done any like mentoring of like junior developers or anything?
Yeah, I mean, not in my current role so much, but I mean, I was definitely in my previous role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is something I really enjoy, because I like to sort of give presentations and workshops and things like that. I'm a bit of an attention seeker.
I remember our DJ gig. Like, I would never go on the mic, and you'd go on the mic and have like do the delay things and just like the delay pedals. It's like it's almost anything, and just but yeah, you weren't reticent about getting on the mic. Put it that way.
Yeah, the microphone effects are there to be used. You know, sounds great.
If they weren't, they wouldn't be on the mixer. So yeah,
exactly.
No, that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like the one thing that was good about some of the consulting things was, because you were jumping from project to project, you know, sometimes I'd be jumped into the project and I'd be the only developer on it. So you're kind of in that like sink or sink. I mean, float, sink or sink.
That's really a negative way to
swim or sink.
Sink or swim?
Yeah.
Sink or sink.
Sink or
it's
swim.
Like not very good chances.
Oh my god. Sorry.
It's good, man. Sink or swim, you're saying.
Yeah, sink or swim. So you kind of, and I think you have that pressure to deliver. There sort of really helps for when you're jumping onto for doing more senior stuff, I think.
Yeah, I guess we've not really talked so much about what like frameworks or libraries you use. So are you like, am I right in thinking you're a React guy mostly?
I was a React guy mostly.
Okay.
So I was, I guess, sort of more of a functional front-end developer. Somewhat. Although I love CSS and HTML and everything like that. That's kind of what drew me to web development was to be able to just like create a design and then build it. But definitely sort of moved into, I became a React specialist, I suppose. That's really what I was loving a lot about the front end. So that sort of puts you a bit more JavaScripty. And now, for the last 6 months at this new job, been like kind of full stack. Like I've been writing SQL, which I wasn't too stoked at.
All right.
But now I'm just like, we'll just do it.
How come you?
And I guess that's sort of just becoming. It's more of just becoming a JavaScript developer. And then, you know, if the backend's in Node, then really like you can jump between the front and the back and all the way to the, and even the SQL is kind of easy because it's like it's in a JavaScript wrapper.
What have you got against SQL?
So, I just don't know it very well, to be honest. Like I sort of protected myself. Well, when I got into back when I was doing the boot camp, we learnt Mongo.
Oh yeah.
I think we may have learned a little bit of SQL, but we kind of learnt Mongo. At that time, Mongo was sort of taking off and being like, "Hey, it's like JavaScript everywhere, like JSON's in your database, and then everything in the front." And then Mongo sort of, I mean, it's still really popular, but I think I think SQL kind of started doing embedded JSONs, and they're like, if you want JSONs, we can put JSONs in it. It's not a big deal.
SQL's this like reasonable person. It's just like,
yeah, it's like,
why didn't you ask for JSON? Yeah. I've seen. It's funny though, because I see lots of bit camps teach Mongo, but from what I guess I see more like SQL used more in the real world.
Yeah, I haven't seen Mongo used in many projects, really. Not that I've been looking for it, but yeah, generally people just stick to SQL really because it's just so well known.
Yeah,
it works really well. But for all my little side projects and stuff, I've been using Mongo for the last forever now. So it's like, so I've just been avoiding SQL even for my like side projects.
Fair play.
So then when I have to get on, you're like, my God. But then at the same time, it's like it's really well documented, and even like the language is like it just reads very easily.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah,
it's not so bad.
I mean, I've done a little, and it's always kind of like insert name into table, and it's pretty straightforward.
It seems pretty straightforward. Yeah.
So,
it's just like select this from that, where that, sort by ascending. It's like, okay.
There's bigger problems in the world
than having to do SQL at work. Yeah.
Anything but that. I do. Yeah, I do kind of realize we've really annoyed anyone that pronounces it sequel. So there's going to be like half the people listening or watching this, they're like, no. And so so SQL just for one more time. It's the right way to say it.
Right, yeah, sequel.
What advice do you have for people that are like wanting to learn to code?
Oh, right.
Big question.
I guess it depends a little bit where they're at. If they're looking to like code as a job and they want to do it as quickly as possible, I would definitely recommend a boot camp. Just because it worked out really well for me. But if you're maybe not planning to jump into it straight away, then there's a lot of good online resources as well. But
that's one. Just as like a devil's advocate, I guess like if you're just doing like online resources, I guess it's like a lot cheaper, and it's like you can like I guess like choose exactly what interests you. So I guess there have been some boot camps in the UK that I've looked at, but I'm like, I don't really want to learn that stack or whatever. But I mean, obviously like obviously it's work for you. Well, so do you think it's work, like definitely worth the price and everything? Yeah,
I mean, it is quite expensive. I ended up putting mine on Hex, which is kind of I don't know what the UK equivalent is.
Yeah,
it's like a
kind of like student loan.
Yeah, like a student loan thing, but the government kind of gives you a no interest loan.
Yeah.
Which I'm gonna be paying that off for ages.
Yeah.
That plus I did a uni degree, which I didn't use.
Oh well, when you're at like 5-star hotels in Melbourne, I think you can kind of be like, oh no, my Hex bill is so big. It's like I would take that. Yeah,
it definitely. It's better than working in that communications job, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. The path you could, the path you could have taken if you just stayed in there. Imagine if you hadn't automated that Python script and you're still checking emails or whatever.
Exactly. But I know people who haven't done bootcamp and they're great programmers. it's just a sort of like, how do you get that into the industry? Because it's not like a lot of companies want to hire a junior programmer,
Right.
It's and that is because it's like, well, if you're paying them, as a junior, maybe say like 55, 60K or something.
Yeah.
In Australian dollars, I don't know. But anyway, you have to pay them, and then they don't really know anything, so you have to kind of teach them as well.
Right.
So it's like, it's not that they don't know anything; they might be quite good, but you definitely will have to teach them stuff. So you have to pay them, and then they cost a lot of money, and they cost money to train, and then they just leave once they know some stuff. You know what I mean? Go find a better company.
I think that's probably the same for all millennial employees. It's kind of like, no one wants to work for a company for 40 years anymore. Everyone just works for 2 years or whatever and then leaves. So, but I should say as well, I've got a job board, which is nocsok.com, and I share like positions for people that are...
What sort of jobs do we have there?
Loads of jobs, Rick. I'm so glad you asked. It's for, just like self-taught and bootcamp students. So, like, there are companies that are hiring those people, but I guess, like, so I make this, like, newsletter and I send it out so anyone subscribe to that can get these positions, because otherwise it is a bit of a pain, because there's a real mix. Like, some companies are like, we want a CS degree, and some are a lot more forward thinking, and they'll take some of them still want a boot camp, some of them don't mind, and we'll have like self-taught people. But
I think it's about getting past like the test. If the company has like a good junior test, and they can filter people out based off that often like it ends up being like very, very valuable.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Do you find that a lot of the companies posting jobs have like, what sort of criteria are they selecting?
It's a really good question. I guess there will be technical tests. But I guess like seeing like side projects, or like, I guess number one would be having like a GitHub profile, so people can see your code and see what projects you've done. But yeah, I guess I know a lot of people that post on there are really looking for enthusiasm. So I guess they want someone that's really into coding and that will enjoy the job. And I think like, obviously, like intrinsic motivation is really powerful. And I think this is kind of a wider issue, but I think most companies want to hire people that want to do the job rather than just want stacks of money, because there's other jobs that pay stacks of money. Or, or you might be having, I don't know, if you've got an employee and it's like a really hard week for the company or stuff like that, you kind of need that kind of desire to want to be there to stick it out.
Yeah.
I think
that's a really important trait for... I think it's kind of why developers are kind of developers in a way. They really get into those kind of problems and issues and things, like, and you just can spend like all night happily hacking away on trying to get a component sitting right, and all those sort of little tasks and challenges that appear with programming.
Yeah. Definitely.
So
I guess like, so like getting your hands dirty with code and like making your own projects and stuff would be something that you recommend. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, GitHub's such a good way to do it as well, because especially if you're already working on something on GitHub with other people, that's probably a massive win as far as like a hiring manager is going to see. Because
how would you get into doing that exactly?
Well, there's loads of open source projects. Even if you just jump on and alter the README or something like that, like at least you're kind of like part of it. And you can sort of see how a team's going to operate, and you might get invited to their like, some of their meetings and sort of see their boards and their ticket boards, or how they might set something up, and then how PR reviews happen, and what sort of thing happens along their pipeline for merging a PR, and just getting involved on that level, because at the end of the day, like, you're only writing code maybe half the time, maybe less, and then the rest of the time is doing reviewing code and talking about code and then and planning it and stuff. So
what's out of interest, like what kind of age are the people that you work with? What's like the oldest person? If you
I mean, I'm not sure actually, but I mean, in consulting, it was like, I think half the people in consulting were under 30.
Wow.
I'm just on the other side of 30. Yeah. But now in the product company that I'm working for now, there's probably it's definitely older than that, at least. More people have families and other priorities like that.
Yeah, sure it is.
But it's a bit of a range, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, the oldest people, I'm not sure who the oldest people are.
Yeah, I guess,
yeah.
I know, it depends. I guess maybe it's more of a like Silicon Valley thing where like everyone's super young and it's like, ooh, you're 25, a bit old for like startup stuff and things like that. But yeah, I think that's maybe more like of a Valley thing, so it's not such a big deal like around the rest of the world. But yeah, where the same feels like a very formal question, but like I don't want to say where do you see yourself in 5 years' time, but like where do you see the kind of like evolution? Because you've done like consulting and now you're like senior developer in a product role.
Yeah.
What would you like to go into in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Because obviously I'd probably stay with this current role for at the moment, but then like looking to the future, you want to make sure you're getting the tools to move in the right direction. You don't want to do the same job, 5 years or 10 years in a row. You know what I mean? You want to be doing like building towards something, and because otherwise you end up just doing the same year 10 times. No one doesn't really give you a great breadth of experience. So for me at the moment, it's kind of looking at how can I do like sort of system architect things. So how can I communicate things at scale to people? Building diagrams and state charts that are easily communicated to non-technical people and can be be used as a great technical diagram for building systems and things like that. And that's something I'm working on at the moment. So that system architect sort of role is very interesting. But then there's another role as well, which is sort of stepping back from tech a little bit as well, and focusing more on like the management of teams and whatnot. And you could always take a step into like becoming like a product manager or something like that.
Sure.
Those sort of lines I think can be quite interesting. I like dealing with people, so there's definitely an attraction to being more of a manager, a technical manager of some description.
Yeah.
But also I think that there's sort of some of these architect stuff is very interesting as well. So.
Cool. So you did an interview before for my website, which is nocsdegree.com, and in that, I think you're talking about doing like side projects, like you've done stuff with like the Spotify API and like getting BPM.
Yeah.
Is that like that's like maybe an old project now, but like.
it's funny you mentioned it because it kind of was a bit of an old project, but I restarted it. I got back into it.
Nice.
Um,
What else about
yeah.
it then?
Oh well. So I've done a couple of different side projects. Most of them are just for fun. Like sort of like I had like a party and like a badminton party, and I like made a website, and then it had like you put in your details and it creates like the ladder for
Nice.
just like fun stuff like that. And then like in lockdown, I was sort of like doing like a word generator thing for a Pictionary and things like that, which is kind of a fun projects. But the Spotify one, actually, I bought the domain rectify.com.
Okay. Nice.
So you can go to that now, and it's got like a whole Spotify clone there. But it's also got like a playlist sorter, which is really cool. I'm really proud of that.
So tell us, what does it do exactly?
So it takes your playlist and it's got all these like audio features in the background, so you can sort your playlist by like BPM or like the Camelot scale. Do you know that thing for like mixing in key?
Yeah.
So I like put that into it, and you can do it by danceability, energy, like happiness. So you can sort all this stuff, and it's like as a DJ, you can basically get like all these tracks, like all your playlists sorted by these like fancy audio features that Spotify use.
Yeah,
use in the background, which is really cool. And then I've got some new features which I've almost implemented. So I'll let you
nice one.
But that's more around like a party playlist sort of thing.
Cool. Crank up the danceability.
Yeah. Well, because you can get like your top tracks. So you can kind of get like your top 50 tracks for the last year or 6 months or a couple of weeks or something. So what I'm trying to do now is like I invite you to a group, and then you import your top tracks and you combine it with my top tracks. And then we can like sort by danceability. We can have ourselves a dance party with Pete and Rick's top tracks, which is a great way to like, because you're often at people's houses or at a party or something, and everyone wants to listen to Spotify, but no one likes the other people's music. Well, it's like, well, it's just, what if there was a way to combine everyone's tracks?
That sounds magic. That sounds really good.
But I've been telling people that I'm going to do that way more than I've actually done it. So I've got to like
join the club.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I love that you bought a domain and used it, because there's a lot of domains in my name cheap
been buying
inbox.
Too many.
Yeah, I'm not so bad now. Like a year or two, I just I think one time I saw on Twitter someone was like, "Oh, I feel really bad. I've got like 7 domains." I'm like, I've got like 35. just
you might have a few of them.
Yeah, that's my level.
Definitely, something like 20.
Yeah, it's for anyone listening. It's probably a good idea that you make your project first and then buy the domain, because contrary to popular perception, there aren't like thousands of people looking at the domain that you want right now, and I don't even think a domain really matters that much.
No, probably not. And also, like, now there's so many like cool domains anyway. Like, I was looking through all these domains the other day with a friend, and like, some of them, there's so many good ones. Did you know like photos.wedding is available for like $100?
Oh wow! Someone's definitely gonna watch or listen to this and then just grab it. I'm trying to think of I need to sell some of mine, but there is a cool one which was someone bought this. I think he's got onions.com, and he did this like viral post on Hacker News where he wrote this was like a perfectly worded like entry on Hacker News. It's just like I sell onions on the internet, and he's not going to click on that. And yeah, it took you to this link, and yeah, this guy, Peter Askew, I think is how you say his name. He actually buys domains that are like that, like wedding.photo and stuff like that, or just like onions.com. And it's funny because the way this is a massive tangent, but he creates businesses after he's got the domain. And now it's like wedding.photo. Right, I better make a website about wedding photos or something like that. So yeah, instead of being like, oh, I really want to make this, like, this is my vision and it's going to change the world. He's just like, now what's the cool domain that's available? And then he like,
I kind of love that approach.
Figures out the business afterwards. Yeah, I do too, because it's quite refreshing and it's quite different, and it's not someone, I guess, lots of people, including myself, kind of like, overanalyze or like micro plan ideas before creating them and stuff. So it's quite funny to see someone say, onions.com. Yeah, I reckon I can make a business around that. And that's all.
I think having the domain is always a good motivation, though. Like
it's not. I disagree.
And then I had this badminton party, and I bought like badmintonparty.com. as you do.
What did you make?
And then I was so excited that I threw up a little thing on it. And I invited a whole bunch of people. They're like, "Oh, come to badminton." And then I'm like, "Oh no! Now people are going to go to this website, but actually make it work." And
it's good if you get a domain and actually use it. Fantastic, but I think it's just there's definitely some kind of psychological effect that you care more about losing something than acquiring it. So if you already have something in your possession, you care more about it than if you don't have it and you want to acquire it, basically. So it's why kind of like, say you've got like loads of books, you don't want to throw them out, but you might not buy those same books if you didn't have them, you see what I mean? And definitely the same goes with domains, because when it comes to renew them, you're like, oh, I can't like let that one go. It might be like click renew, and it's like, oh, I wonder how these domain companies have so much money. It's just
but although maybe there should be a rule like on a book that like if you haven't read it in like a year or two, it should expire, and you should and you should have to give it to the library or something.
Yeah, let's enforce that tomorrow. I do think. Well, I think like Marie Kondo, but for domains. If it doesn't spark joy, then just like don't renew it. Nice one.
But then of course, like they always just renew it automatically anyway.
Nah, I don't know.
It just comes up as a bill, and you're like, oh.
Nah, I think I let my domains expire now, and I think of it like as like, I know, like a branch floating down a river away. It's like, it's fine. It's like, bye domain. It wasn't meant to be. And it just flows away. Well, it's great chatting to you today about coding and getting into being a developer. Cheers for the chat, man. Take it easy.
Cool. All right. Thanks, mate.
Cool.